He was gone for years. So why does his return feel more dangerous than his absence? Heartland Season 20. Episode 1 doesn't ease us in. It presses straight on the emotional bruise fans thought would never be touched again. Borden is back. Not as a memory, not as a photograph on a shelf, but as a living, breathing presence that instantly rearranges everything Amy worked so hard to survive without. And no, this isn't a fairy tale comeback. This is the kind of return that forces everyone to relive the parts of the story they buried just to keep functioning. Ty has always been stitched into the DNA of Heartland. From the moment he arrived as an angry, guarded kid, he represented unfinished business, pain looking for purpose. A boy convinced the world would eventually leave him, proven wrong only because Heartland refused to let him fall. Jack gave him rules, Amy gave him belief, and the ranch gave him something he'd never had before, a future worth protecting. Ty didn't become a veterinarian by accident. He became one because healing others helped him understand his own damage. That's who Ty was. Steady, quiet, earned, not flashy. And when someone like that disappears, the silence is louder than any goodbye. After Ty left, Heartland kept breathing, but it never fully exhaled. Amy didn't collapse. She adapted. And that's what made it heartbreaking. She learned how to function without leaning on anyone. She raised Lindy, made decisions alone, and built walls so high that even hope couldn't climb them. On the surface, she was strong. Underneath, she was exhausted. Loving Ty didn't stop when he was gone. It just became something she carried silently, like a weight she didn't complain about because everyone else expected her to be fine. And over time, that grief didn't fade. It hardened. Season 20, Episode 1 understands that history. It doesn't rush, it waits. The ranch feels calm, almost too calm, like the quiet right before something breaks. Amy is capable, confident, and emotionally unreachable. Lindy is older now, more observant, asking questions that don't have easy answers. Jack watches everything with the awareness of someone who knows that unresolved pain always circles back. The episode doesn't shout Ty's name. It lets the absence speak first, because before you can feel the impact of his return, you have to remember what it cost to live without him. And then it happens. Amy sees Ty again. No music swell, no dramatic sprint into his arms. Just shock. Pure, paralyzing disbelief. Her body reacts before her mind can catch up. Years of suppressed emotion hit her all at once. This isn't reunion joy. This is emotional whiplash. Love colliding with fear. Relief tangled with anger. Because seeing Ty doesn't erase the years he missed. It drags them all back to the surface. Every lonely night, every decision she made alone, every moment Lindy grew without him there. Amy doesn't rush toward him because survival taught her not to. Trust, once broken this deeply, doesn't magically repair itself. Her heart remembers loving Ty completely and remembers exactly how much it hurt when that love became something she had to grieve. This moment forces her to confront the version of herself she became after he left. The woman who learned how to live without dreaming too far ahead. The woman who stopped allowing herself to imagine a future that could vanish again. And then there's Lindy, the quiet emotional wild card no one is prepared for. She doesn't react with anger or confusion. She watches, studies, feels. She recognizes something she can't explain because children don't need history to understand connection. For Ty, meeting Lindy isn't triumphant. It's overwhelming. This is the life that continued without him. Proof of love and proof of everything he missed. For Amy, watching them together is both comforting and devastating. Lindy becomes the bridge between what was lost and what might still be possible. But bridges are fragile, and one wrong step can send everything crashing down. Because here's the uncomfortable truth Heartland refuses to ignore. Some returns don't heal. Some reopen wounds people barely survived closing. And as Ty stands back in the place that once saved him, the real question isn't whether he belongs there again. It's whether Amy's heart can survive what his return might demand next. Or is this reunion just the beginning of another heartbreak waiting to happen? Ty's return doesn't land the same way for everyone, and that's where the tension quietly explodes. Jack sees him first, not as the man who disappeared, but as the boy who once stood on the same land with nothing but anger and fear. Jack has lived long enough to know life doesn't offer clean explanations. He doesn't rush to forgive, and he doesn't rush to accuse. He waits, because wisdom understands something the others are still wrestling with. Love and pain can exist in the same breath. Jack knows Ty's absence caused damage that can't be undone, but he also knows that shutting the door completely would only create another kind of loss. His calm presence steadies the room, even as emotions threaten to spill over. Tim, on the other hand, reacts exactly how you'd expect, and not how he actually feels. The sarcasm appears first, the jokes, the emotional dodge. He pretends this is no big deal, that Ty walking back into their lives doesn't matter much, but it does. And that's why Tim can't say it out loud. Ty earned his respect the hard way, through work, responsibility, and loyalty when it counted. Seeing him again stirs up pride, relief, and anger all at once. Tim struggles with the contradiction of wanting to be glad while remembering how deeply Amy suffered. He doesn't give speeches. He doesn't explain himself. He just stays. And for Tim, staying says everything. Georgie's response is quieter, but maybe the most revealing. She understands broken paths and second chances because she's lived them. Ty's return doesn't confuse her. It makes sense. Life rarely moves in straight lines, and she knows people aren't defined by their worst choices. She doesn't pressure Amy. She doesn't interrogate Ty. She simply creates space. Space for feelings to exist without demands. Her calm maturity reminds Amy that she doesn't owe anyone instant forgiveness or instant decisions. Healing doesn't need to be rushed to be real. Lou, however, feels everything at full volume. Relief hits her first, and she hates herself for it. Because relief means hope, and hope feels dangerous. She's watched Amy survive years of quiet heartbreak. She remembers the nights Amy didn't sleep, the strength she carried without complaint, the way she learned to function without asking for help. Lou wants Amy to be happy, but she also wants her protected. That's why she hesitates. Not because she doesn't care about Ty, but because she cares too much about the damage his absence caused. She needs answers. Why now? Why after all this time? And does Ty truly understand what his leaving did to the people he claims to love? Then comes the family dinner, and suddenly everything feels too real. Ty sitting at the table again feels unfamiliar, almost wrong, like a memory stepping out of the past. No one pretends nothing happened. The tension sits between them, heavy but honest. Dishes pass, glances linger, words feel carefully chosen. Amy is drowning in flashbacks of dinners that once felt normal, safe, permanent. Lindy changes the entire energy without trying. She laughs. She asks simple questions. She reminds everyone that life didn't stop, even when hearts broke. By the time the meal ends, nothing is resolved. But something shifts. The family doesn't leave healed. They leave connected. And that matters more than anyone wants to admit. Later, Amy and Ty finally face each other without an audience. And this is where the story stops pretending. Ty doesn't offer excuses. He owns the damage. The years he missed, the moments he can never get back. Amy doesn't explode. She unloads truth, loneliness, exhaustion, the fear of loving again after learning how to survive alone. She talks about Lindy, about being strong when she didn't want to be, about burying grief because life demanded it. This conversation hurts because it's honest, but honesty is the first real step toward healing. They don't promise forever. They don't rush forgiveness. They choose something harder. Patience. Trust that has to be rebuilt, not assumed. Love that survived absence, but now has to survive reality. By the end of the episode, Heartland isn't fixed. It's changed. Shaped by loss, softened by truth, and standing on the edge of something uncertain. Because the real question isn't whether Ty is back, it's whether this family can survive what his return will force them all to confront next.